My name is Robin King, and I'm a faculty member in the writing program. So I teach rhetoric and inquiry. I also teach classes that mentor new writing assistants that assist other students. Also, food politics. One of the main things that's important to me as a teacher is encouraging my students to adopt the mind of a researcher. And we're at a research institution, so it's important for them to remember that, and that most classes will encourage them to adopt the mind of a researcher. This is different, obviously, for the science classes than for writing. And it's also a concept that I think it's new to them in the sense that, particularly for writing, they've taught to write in a certain specific way, generally the 5-paragraph essay, that sort of thing, where they are limiting their thinking to 3 aspects of a subject, or just simplifying it, as opposed to developing the kind of agency in writing that they can have if they adopt the mind of a researcher and think well about the reader that they're writing to. I've heard that criticism as well about the writing ability. I've heard even science teachers, science professors complain to me about the lack of students being able to construct a sentence, let alone a paragraph. And I don't think it's that they can't do it. I think they can do it. But I think that teachers must require that they do it and return papers that aren't done that way. Because I think, the literacy rate is alarming in certain ways. Many students come unprepared to the university with very weak reading skills, very weak writing skills. And it's a struggle for so many students just to read the material that they're given. And they certainly don't read all of the material that they're assigned. However, they can do it. And the instruction, if it's scaffolded so that they're learning to read, they're learning to observe, they're learning to take agency in terms of writing things that really demonstrate their honest thinking as opposed to what they think they should be including in papers. It's possible to scaffold the writing, but I also think it's that teachers have to demand that they do write honestly, that they do adopt the mind of a researcher, do a lot of critical thinking. Not so much the basic writing classes. It's just that when students move on, there's either no writing classes to move on to, and that other disciplines don't include writing in their classes, so that students end up with writing all 4 years that they're here, and come out as strong writers because they've taken what they've learned in their beginning writing classes and being able to move forward because of the repeated requirements to write and produce satisfactory writing. We have a course assessment program where undergraduates apply and are accepted to mentor first quarter students, first year students. And with that job, they're required to take a class, Writing 169, which is called, I think, Assisting in the Writing Process, where they get the pedagogy lessons, as well as write essays that they can perfect their own writing. I think the benefits are manyfold. Usually these students have taken the core course that they're being a writing assistant for, so they're familiar with the material. These students are students who have done well in their writing courses. They must submit some writing to apply and be accepted. So it gives them, it serves an educational purpose in multitude of ways. One way is that they begin to assist other students, and so they learn how to mentor student writing, how to help students not only with the grammar and structure, but certainly in terms of students adding their agency, their voice to their writing. So for the writing assistants, their training is, I would say, threefold. One, the training they get in Writing 169, which talks about pedagogy, teaching grammar, teaching structure, organization, learning what it means to mentor students from different populations, being thoughtful and mindful of mentoring students from different populations, from different school systems. 2, working with one teacher in particular, so getting mentoring from that teacher in terms of the particular students in the course itself, as well as what they learn on the job. I mean, teaching, like learning to be a writing assistant, you really learn a lot from making the mistakes. Coming in with a plan and realizing that, nope, at this point, you're going to have to be flexible in terms of, how you teach this person or how you teach in this situation. So learning that kind of flexibility that I think all teachers learn early in their career is something that our writing assistants also learn. This is true for both teaching the writing assistants and teaching students who come from under-resourced high school. Working to make sure that they understand the concept of moving from one language to another language. And I don't mean necessarily a heritage language, but I mean moving from a language outside of college to academic language, a non-professional language to professional language, and what that means in terms of both their writing, but also how they're going to use this language once they leave the university. And there's many researchers who talk about this. Very often students feel like they're asked to discard their language and replace it with academic language. And I don't think that develops strong thinkers, strong researchers. I think it tears down students' ability to have agency. So reminding them that, academic language is just one of the languages that they can adopt in terms of being successful in class, in terms of being successful in life. And that doesn't mean their primary language, whether that's a dialect of English or that's a different language than English, doesn't mean that they have to throw that away. In fact, they shouldn't throw that away. But they should think of it as we're all learning to be bilingual, in terms of knowing that the languages we use in our homes, in our communities, with our friends is certainly valid and it's useful and it serves a purpose. But the academic language is something that we have to learn. Some of us, more than others in terms of acclimating to it, coming from whatever communities we come from. But establishing that sort of, reminding them of that they're adopting the mind of a researcher, but in some ways they've already adopted that mind. So how do they translate that into the academic language? How do they translate their good critical thinking into academic language so that they can move forward effectively in terms of their courses and in terms of their intended professions? That's really important, I think, in terms of teaching second language students, Generation 1.5 students, students from under-resourced background, communities of color, to remember that they're just learning another language and it might be difficult, but it's doable because in some cases, we're all bilingual and trilingual for whatever reasons.